Welcome to the New Rugged Order podcast, exclusively on the Hard Knock Digital Culture channel. Now give it up to your host people, MM2K.
Yo, what is up, everybody? What is up, everybody? What is up, everybody? It is your boy MM2K of PNTS Network and on Hard Knock Digital Culture, back again with another episode of NRO Live, or if you're watching this on demand, this is NRO Podcast on YouTube. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you for coming through. Because, man, do we have a special one for you today. This is an episode I want you to know that I worked on all week. That's not typical. Normally what happens is, as I'm coming across gaming news, if I see something like a week out from when I'm doing the show, I talk about that in a special mic or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, if there's new revelations, I'll bring that up later to a certain topic in the week. But normally I don't wait. I don't work on things a whole week in order to talk about it, unless it's something that's carrying over from a previous show. But this week I had to do that. There was one item that I definitely want to talk about that I didn't get into last week. We're going to talk about it today for sure. But there was something that I was working on all week. And then in the middle of me saying, okay, this is our show, I got bombarded late yesterday, and I blame Cold Blood. I'm going to put his comment up there. I'm going to blame Cold Blood Sensei. At the middle of my show last week, this fool came in with this. Oh, not last week, yesterday, this fool comes in with. He said, just now, Jason Schreier posted that Jim Ryan might step down. And that blew everything. I mean, everything up. So thank you, Cold Blood Sensei, for taking my hard work and just throwing it out the window. No, we're still going to talk about that thing that I've been working on all week. We had to slide something out. I think Cold Blood's going to be happy about that. It was about Ubisoft. And Cold Blood's like, who gives a damn about Ubisoft here? Yeah, so we got the Ubimost channel starting next week. That's going to, content is going to come back there. I'll put it like that. Content will come back there. And the content that goes over there on the Ubimost channel, we will talk about that Ubisoft stuff, because Ubisoft is going through a revival. But nonetheless, Jim Ryan stepping down. He says, what did Cold Blood just say? He said, what homework? He said, Ubisoft trash. Jim Ryan going, Starfield is game of the generation. Everything is great. You know what? I can't agree more. The topic that I want to talk about right now, or that we're going to talk about first, and we're not going to do an episode of the what do you call that? What do I call that damn thing? Golly, the capsule. We're not doing an episode of the capsule today. We're just going to get right into it. But before we get right into it, got to pay the bills. You see that on your screen? That is our website, PNTSnetwork.com. You can go there and check out the latest and greatest in gaming news and our podcasts and videos across the board, and a host of PNTS Network content. So definitely check it out. Like, for those of you that understand the power and the greatness of NVIDIA GeForce Now, you can go check that out. We have some information on a weekly segment that we do with the Thursday blog. You can check out all of our streams of Starfield if you want to, or our podcast talking about it, all that great stuff, right? Okay. So we had to pay those bills. All right. Let's get on to the show. First things first. You know what? And let me do this. I wasn't going to do this at first, but I think it's important to do this. So we are going to, here, let me fix this first. All right, let me bring up this, bring up that, and bring up that. Now I can close this. All right. And then lastly, I'm going to bring up this window as well. You guys can't see none of the stuff that I'm talking about. It just sounds like I'm talking to myself. I talk to myself because I have no one to talk to. Y'all don't know who y'all figure out who sung that song. I'll sing you $5. You got until what? You got until October 1st to tell me who sings that song. I talk to myself. Anywho, all right. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Because I want to put up, what I'm doing, folks, is I'm putting up my thingy board. All right, so we got, this is not the capsule, but there are 3 topics that we're going to talk about. So I want to edit these so people are not confused. They know what's going on. Topic number 1 is going to be Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan retires. Or we'll put Jim Ryan to retire. To retire. Number 2 will be, oh, please don't do that. God damn it. I didn't want that to happen. Oh, God. Yeah, I'm going to shut this off abruptly. I don't want that to come on. Please don't come on. Jesus Christ. 'Cause that's going to ruin everything. God damn you, keyboard. Shut down. Shut off. There we go. All right. I couldn't have that come on. All right. So we got Jim Ryan to retire. What else we got? We got our big topic, which is going to be, I'm going to leave that there. Well, if you saw the thumbnail, you know what it is. We're going to do an official Starfield impression. And what does that mean? I'll break that down to you. And then lastly, we're going to talk about 1P big debate. There's this conversation around first party games that I think has a lot of people deceived in so many ways. And we want to address it. Give me one second. Okay. All right. So let's do this. And also, I'm going to do one last thing because I don't know if everybody knows that I'm live. And I'll shout out my peoples, Sean, Ron, Slusher, IOG. I don't know if he can make it at, who else? Homie Bulls for Life. Woods. I'll do at Lo-Fi. And I'm gonna do at Squid. All right. Okay. So we got that out to my peoples. Let's see what else we got. Some cloud gaming news. This is 4 new games have arrived on Luna, the headline by the Forgotten City. Okay, that's dope. All right. I need to talk about Luna too. There's some things that I had an epiphany. I get like I get like news feeds for Luna daily. And people are like, daily? Yeah. I mean, there's some news outlets that report on stuff that we've already reported on at Cloud Dosage like days ago. You know, it's the news staggers in for Luna. So it's not like that it's new news daily, but there's news. And it was one source that I really didn't pay attention to when it came to Luna news. I'm going to start marking now down and hopefully I'll refer it to the team because there's some things in regards to Luna that we haven't taken into consideration. So I'm going to talk about Luna over there on Cloud Dosage soon. That'll be my piece of content there. But we got some great content there. We got Blee Flu Flaw, my homie over there, killing it over there with the GFN news yesterday, and he's got another video that's coming out tomorrow. I want to put stuff out there that's usually going to hit on Sunday. Then we got the homie Squid that drops his show. His variety show on Mondays, you know what I'm saying? So we're going to get more and more content on over there and so forth. All right. With that said, I showed the website. What I didn't show was this. Here's what I want to show last on the website. If you go to members, MM2K Gaming, check us out over there. Come on, hold on. Come on, man. Jeez Louise. All right. Here we go right here. You can check out the Twitch stream live there, and you can also see my latest Starfield or my latest YouTube content, as well as Everywhere I podcast and create content, you can check it out there. Also, Cloud Dosage News and Cloud Dosage Streams, and Newbie Most Gaming, of course, would be part of that. All right, wanted to make sure I show you that. Okay. So, that said, let's get into today's story. Jim Ryan retiring. Is that gonna pop up? How come I don't see it popping up? There it goes. It's up there. So the news is, after 30 years at PlayStation, Jim Ryan is retiring, right? And this created a buzz across the internet because people are looking at Jim Ryan's retirement as earth-shattering news. I don't know if it's earth-shattering, and I'll explain why. I think people have over-exaggerated how significant this is. But it's definitely newsworthy. And there is a story here. Let's take a look at it. This is from BBC of all places. Is PlayStation boss Jim Ryan to retire from Sony next year. I picked this story because it's a nice, concise story. I'm going to be doing a lot of talk myself, so I didn't need a story with a lot of content and stuff to it, because I think a lot of publications are not focused on the right content when it comes to this. If you're a cloud gamer, however, I definitely urge that you go to clouddosage.com, check out our article there. Very great and concise and to the point article in regards to what Jim Ryan's retirement could mean for cloud gaming. Definitely check that out. All right, that being said, says PlayStation boss Jim Ryan is to step down March 2024 after almost 30 years with the company. He took over Sony Interactive Entertainment in February of 2019, having joined Sony a few months before the launch of the PlayStation 4. His departure comes as a shock after the recent success of PlayStation 5, which he has overseen since it launched in 2020. Mr. Ryan said he took the decision to leave over issues he had living in Europe while working in North America. He said, I've relished the opportunity to have a job I love in a very special company, working with the great people and incredible partners. He said in a statement, I will be leaving. I leave having been privileged, to work on products that have touched millions of lives across the world. PlayStation will always be part of my life, and I feel more optimistic than ever about the future of SIE. Sony's Chief Operational Officer, Hiroki Tataki, will take over as interim CEO following Ryan's departure. Says inspirational leader, the PlayStation 5 originally had some supply issues when it launched, which led to scalpers buying up consoles and selling them at double price. But those problems have been resolved, and Sony is going to sell 40 million of the consoles worldwide. Jim Ryan has been an inspirational leader throughout this entire period with us, but never more so than in overseeing the launch of the PlayStation 5 in the midst of the global COVID pandemic, said Sony CEO Kenichiro Yoshida. The article continues by saying that extraordinary achievement made by the entire SAE team has been steadily built on, and PlayStation 5 is on track becoming SIE's most successful console yet. We're going to talk more about those type of accomplishments in regards to what he's done with PlayStation. And I keep getting these error messages. So if you notice anything fuddy-duddy with the stream, please let me know in the chat. We got Cold Blood Sensei in the chat. He says, this is what he says. My brother says, he's just done with the BS, that's all. He says, being PlayStation CEO is probably the most stressful job an executive can do. F up. Ruin a lot. One F up can ruin a lot. I think those are fair points, and I'm going to definitely elaborate on those, Cold Blood, because I think people are missing that context when they're talking about it. You know what I'm saying? That said, so that's the story. Okay. Now, there's a reason why that this is so big in what people are saying about this, right? So I want you guys, so you got to follow me here, because what MM2K is going to do from here on out in this presentation about Jim Ryan is I'm going to take you into an alternate universe where facts and reality don't exist. And I'm going to show you what is being said by gamers and so-called gaming journalists about what's going on here. And then, right before it gets scary and you think that alternate reality is going to suck you up and take you into oblivion land, I'm going to pull you right back out and I'm going to bring you back to reality. Bear with me. Stay with me, because this place where facts don't exist can be scary as hell. All right, let's go there. So let's talk about the speculation and why people are saying definitively why Jim Ryan is retiring. Okay. There are 5 specific reasons that I've been noticing online. Let's go over all 5. Now we're journeying into unreality land. Number 1, people feel that the firing is definitively, can't be no other reason. It is definitively because Jim and Sony were on the short end of the APK deal. Meaning they, things happen with APK that Jim was arguing against. And because the deal is successfully going through, in general, because it's successfully going through, that and they got a worse deal. They got the bad end of the stick because of the deal. They had something going on. This is the real reasoning that. Well, this is the real reason that people are giving. That before Jim Ryan decided unilaterally that Jim unilaterally, let me, because when I bring you back into reality, we're going to readdress all of this delusion. So I'm going to say Jim unilaterally made the APK deal outcome worse for Sony. I've seen people do it. They've got on camera. They said, I told you. Jimbo is gone because he didn't know that is why. Right? So that's point number 1. That Jim unilaterally, he was like, oh, no, time for me to, throw a monkey wrench in this because I'm scared and I know nothing's coming down the pike, and I just got to be a jerk. I got to be scared, I got to be scared and desperate, right? Like, this is some of the sad stuff that you're hearing from a lot of Xbox podcast creators that I respected, but they've gone so far off the reservation and cheering on Xbox, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Hold on one second. They've gone so far off the reservation from just simply cheering on Xbox, trying to highlight the positives, being critical where they feel like there's no other option. They've gone from that to Jim Ryan is desperate. He's desperate. Right? Okay. So that's speculation number 1. That Jim Ryan got fired. He's not retiring, that he got fired because he unilaterally did the things that he did, said the things, testified, did all this stuff. and made the APK deal worse for Sony than it would have been had he not done the stuff that he just decided to wake up and do. Okay, that's speculation number one. Speculation number two is he's being terminated again because PlayStation's future looks bleak. We don't know what's coming down the pike as much as we know what's coming down the pike for Xbox. They, they're secretive because they have nothing. Then you've heard news about definitely this is not the greatest outcome, but Knights of the Old Republic may be canceled. There's rumors that Deviation's game has been canceled. And despite Herman Hole saying that they have 26 games coming down the pike, and I don't even think a quarter of them when he made that announcement have been released yet. Despite that being the case, PlayStation has nothing down the road, right? Okay. So, two, the dominant PlayStation, and even look, David Jaffe said this. The illustrious reviewer, the Siskel, the Roger Ebert to video game reviews, David Jaffe. He's turned in his accreditation for the maker of God of War and Twisted Metal. He's turned that in for the Roger Ebert of video game reviews, and he said that hey, Starfield is the best single player experience of all time, even greater than his single player experience. Okay, all right, we'll get to that later. Anywho, even he said that you got to, quote unquote, you got to see the iceberg that PlayStation is going to crash into, or the iceberg that's coming their way, something like that. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't say quote unquote, but saying that they're going to hit a permanent stop here, and it's really going to damage the product and the brand. That came from David Jaffe, and David Jaffe is the crystal ball here because he said that Starfield is the greatest single player experience out there, right? So the future is bleak. That's speculation number two. Speculation number three, in this scary alternative facts land, right, is Jim is leaving, yet Phil gets to stay because Phil is just simply more successful. I mean, if you look at the fact that Phil is still around, he's been around for over 10 years, and Jim barely made half the tenure that Phil made over at Xbox. It all correlates, and that means that because he's out within 5 years, Phil is the more successful head of gaming, right? Okay. That is speculation number three. Speculation number four. We got these last two. Speculation number four is people just say Jim Ryan is a liar, and he's really a liar because of the whole "we believe in generations" mantra that he quote unquote got busted for. Jim is a liar, and this isn't necessarily from people that or even fans of Xbox or even like Xbox. You hear a lot of this from PlayStation enthusiasts. Jim Ryan is a liar, and this was all started. I mean, this all came about because of the whole "we believe in generations" thing. All right, that's number five. Did I say five? I meant to say six. Okay, I lied. Number 5 is Jim lost fanfare because of his push away from console exclusivity. And I want to show you guys this to help you understand what I'm talking about, because people, have been moaning and groaning again in the PlayStation community about under Jim Ryan's helm that gamers that are fans of the PlayStation brand are getting the brand watered down because the brand is showing up in more places, and therefore the exclusivity and the power of the actual console, which everybody is in PlayStation 4, has been lessened, has been weakened because of Jim Ryan, right? And let me show you something that even in my Xbox on the frontline days is something I was peddling as well. There was a slide from Jim back in October 2019 from an investor call where Jim said, hey, look, an SIE believes in gamer choice, right? And so in this whole presentation, if you look at it and if you read it here, I think it's still out here. Let's see if I can open it up. This is the whole presentation right here from Jim Ryan. Oh, shoot. I hit the wrong video. Okay, here we go. So this is the whole presentation from Jim Ryan. And it's from 2019, really showing this large slither of the vision that he's going to move forward. And it was particularly slide 11 where we grabbed that from, and we focused on that a lot. Where is slide 11? Okay. Let me just jump to slide 11. And longer term, like this was introduced back in the PlayStation 4 generation. So he's saying, look, going into PlayStation 5 and so forth, next gen, here's our delivery systems. Here's our mainstream delivery systems, right? Our mainstream delivery systems are PlayStation and PlayStation 2 via CD. PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 are mainstream delivery systems or through Blu-ray and download. And next gen, our mainstream delivery systems will be Blu-ray, download, and streaming. This is key. This is key because the point that I was trying to make, and many of us were making on the Xbox side, is that PlayStation Nation, y'all are sitting there saying that Xbox is dumb for focusing on the cloud. And I was particularly making this argument because, you guys know that I was a big supporter of Stadia because how great that technology was. And unfortunately, not the people within the Stadia, not Dov Zimmering and all those great people. We're talking about the people well above them, the board, who decided that they were going to put this thing to bed. And they're probably kicking themselves now. That being said, we were making this point because we're saying just simply making it available on the cloud without the need of the console is not a bad thing. Like, I get it. PlayStation sells a whole bunch of consoles, and fairly early from each console launch, they sell them at a profit. Like, it doesn't take them long to get to sell it at a profit. Where Xbox, I don't know, they might have had one version of the Xbox 360 that they sold at a profit. I don't think any other versions of an Xbox console were ever sold at a profit. But PlayStation's a manufacturing company. So we were sitting there saying, despite consoles, that's not the wherewithal to success. The wherewithal to success is how much software you sell. So if you can get that software in people's hands without having to sell a console, Then you break down a paywall for people that puts your games, your critically acclaimed games, in more hands. And we had a lot of PlayStation fanboys that fought back on us on that. They said, no. That's not what this chart means. This chart is just simply showing you that PlayStation is showing you how they deliver stuff. That is not true. Because if they were simply showing you where they deliver stuff and not where they deliver stuff, where they intend to deliver stuff, quite frankly, day and date, then streaming, for instance, would be over here, and then they would put PC over here. Because they deliver you PC games, right? Sony has pushed its PC game delivery. Like Horizon Zero Dawn, the Complete Edition, is coming out, in October or something like that? Or coming out in January? Or it's coming out soon for PC, right? So how come PC isn't here if they're just talking about where they deliver games to you? They're talking about where their mainstream sources, which is in reference to day and date, you're going to be able to get their content. However, and that made gamers mad. That made the PlayStation Nation mad, because as we were arguing this, and was like, look, this is what this means. People were upset. I've had people in my DM, shout out to Zim. He was like, what's mainstream is up to the market. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, brother. No. Does this mean their games will be streaming and not native on PC? I remember the random guy. I haven't seen him in a while. I wonder what's up with him. And Big Daddy Ghostface was like, ponies, that's impossible. No. But as we were arguing this point, and shout out to Z, shout out to my mentor, my bro, Next Gen 720. When we were doing this over there on Broadband Bullies, he said, yo, we put him, and Nethos was like, look, this is their intention. Now, where the PlayStation Nation got so hung up on was cloud, for two reasons. Number one, they were like, why would you make your games available without the need of a console? Because you got to remember, that is the whole argument. That's the whole Twitter fight, that the ponies versus the bots. We sell more consoles. And when you take that measurement away, when you take that big shiny block away from the PlayStation Nation, then that requires them to get into game sales and stuff like that, it's not as easy to understand and to break down and simply just throw out there. You got to go read charts and all this other stuff, and they don't want to do that. They just want to simply say NPD came out and NPD shows that we sold more consoles. There is no clear, finalized litmus on who's selling the most games. I mean, NPD does put out the top games list, but when the overall fly swatter, the insect repellent, when you're on a particular side of the console war, or those console sales, or the console sales, and then the money, you know what I'm saying? The thing that solidifies your strategy is how many consoles you have out there. And understandably so, because even though we're talking about cloud and PC and all the other stuff, and Microsoft wants to be everywhere, Microsoft's cloud and PC efforts that they've been heavily pushing, they have not made up nowhere or significant enough to make up the gap between PlayStation, whose main focus is console. So I get it. When a lot of people hear that, they feel like it's a lot of wasted resource into technology that people don't want to access. And then it validates Xbox's strategy. And if you're arguing on Twitter, why would you want to do that? Blah, 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 right? All that silly stuff. The number two reason why people were so hung up on streaming being here and then them understanding what this slide meant is because they automatically assume, erroneously so, that when we talk about streaming, we're talking about subscription services. And that's not true. Let me just see if I can find this because it just hit me. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Let's see here. I think. Okay, let me do this. I think it might be here. Let me see. Oh, damn, the pages. Oh, it ain't even there anymore. Okay, so Strauss Zelnick says, don't confuse the CEO of Take-Two. He says, don't confuse, because I'm looking at stuff with Reset Air, and I remember covering this for Cloud Dosage. So I'm just going to read the notes from Reset Air. He said, don't confuse the streaming and cloud. Cloud is a delivery system. Cloud is a delivery system. Streaming is a delivery system. Subscription is something different. So Game Pass, even though Game Pass's business model includes cloud in the upper tier and it tries to make it synonymous with the subscription service, cloud gaming, and even though Satya Nadella tries to make subscription and cloud synonymous in all of Microsoft's offerings, they are not synonymous business models. Here's what Strauss had to say. He says, now in his immediate thoughts about cloud and streaming, and number one, it's important to him, which he's right, to separate the two. He says, do I think that will happen? Streaming becoming a significant game, a significant way to play games. He said, yeah, I'm sure it'll happen. I think that will happen in 1 to 3 years. I don't think it will happen in 1 to 3 years. Does it increase the total addressable market? Naturally it does, because you don't need to buy a box in order to play our games. You'll probably need to buy a controller, and those will be available. He says, now on subscription models, I don't think the answer is each company for each title has a subscription business that's transformative. I'm not even sure that the subscription model applies to our business. It certainly does apply to frontline products. Could it apply to catalog products? Yeah, probably could. Would it? Sure. Would we participate in a business like that? Yes, we will have one of our own. Probably not. So what he's basically saying is the delivery system of cloud seems more promising than a subscription service, because making things more accessible to gamers is always a great thing. It's just that cloud and the normal means of native gameplay, cloud can't have a significant gap. It got to have all the benefits that are known to the cloud, and the gap between what gamers are used to with native versus what cloud is catching up to can't be that big. And I'm talking about performance, latency, things like that. And he's saying, look, this definitely is something that we see being a big thing for us sooner than subscription. Will we participate in subscription? Sure. But, will we go on our way to out our way to have our own or to make sure our stuff is available day and date? No. And to me, that makes perfect sense. But what gamers did on the PlayStation side is they erroneously took how Microsoft is seamlessly trying to merge subscription and streaming, And they saw that and they said, hold on, we don't want our stuff day and date in PlayStation Now at the time or PlayStation Plus. We don't want that. We think that devalues the game and that's a failing proposal. We don't want that. So they were worked up about that. And again, now at point 5, in non-reality land, we even had some PlayStation gamers there too when it comes to Jim Ryan. Too many felt that he was pushing too far away from consoles based on slides that you see there, right? The last thing of speculation land is that Jim Ryan, and this is coming from everywhere, Jim Ryan is purely focused on games as a service. Those are the 6 points. Let me go over them again. People think that Jim Ryan was fired. He's not retiring, he was fired, but they're rolling it out as a retirement because he unilaterally made some bad decisions about the APK deal that made things worse for Sony. That you hear that there's clips all over the internet from that as things materialize and they debunk it. People cannot escape it. The internet is the internet. Number 2 is PlayStation future looks bleak because they don't have anything else coming. Phil Spencer, number 3 is Phil Spencer is around for as long as he has versus Jim Ryan because Phil Spencer, whether it's short term and long term, just is more successful, has the better strategy. 4, Jim Ryan is a liar, particularly for We Believe in Generations. 5, Jim is losing fanfare because he's pushing away the importance of console exclusivity, and he's doing it severely. And 6, Jim Ryan was focused purely and solely on games as a service. Now that I'm snatching you from the jaws of speculation land, I'm going to bring you back to reality. Let's address number 1. That people feel that the firing, they feel that Jim Ryan isn't retiring, but definitely he's being let go from Sony, and he's being let go because he made things worse for PlayStation in all of his interactions in the APK deal. I show you Exhibit 1 because that couldn't be a bigger crock of BS. This is a tweet that I sent out. And there's court documents out there that show it, not prove it. There's one particular email that corroborates this. I say here, the notion that PlayStation got a worse deal now is silly. The original deal that Phil Spencer presented Jim Ryan with, the original deal was a 4-year deal for all Activision Blizzard content. This new one gives them 6 additional years of Call of Duty. So what ended up happening is Phil Spencer went to Jim Ryan and said, once if our AB, hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. So there is no bigger crock of BS, because here's the deal. Again, the original deal that was offered from Phil Spencer was 4 years of everything Activision. After the whole ordeal with the ABK and all this stuff, Sony now has a 10-year deal of Call of Duty. What I want you guys to do, because all this information is out there. I don't want to pull it up because I would spend all day. Hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry. Okay, so again, no bigger crock of BS than that. There's the email that's out there where Phil clearly gives them 4 years of everything Activision. All PlayStation cares about is Call of Duty. You can keep all that other stuff. I mean, yes, does it sell gangbusters on everything sells gangbusters on PlayStation. But if you take all those other games that are made by Activision Blizzard and add them up, I can guarantee you they do not add up to Call of Duty alone. So why would I settle for 4 years of everything Activision when I can get more than double that for the game that really matters to me? So in actuality, if I'm PlayStation, if I'm running a business, I came out better because of what Jim Ryan did. Really, you can argue that Jim Ryan was the catalyst of them even looking into this and even making the speculation in regards to cloud gaming and understanding that this could lead to anti-competitive practices in cloud gaming. You can surmise that thanks to Jim Ryan having the regulators take an extra look into this, that jump-started that whole process. And you can surmise that because Jim Ryan did that and jump-started the whole process of looking into cloud gaming, we now have a better situation where Call of Duty is coming to NVIDIA GeForce Now Boosteroid. It's even coming to Luna. So I'm saying here right now, all of you zealots that are out there saying Jim Ryan lost and he's pathetic and all this other stuff, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. And particularly to my cloud gaming demographic who I get a lot of you guys love Xbox. I'm not mad at you for that. I'm a different type of gamer. I have a different set of tastes. I have different types of expectations. And I get where you guys are cool with xCloud. But y'all got to keep it a buck. Y'all can't front. Y'all been playing Starfield on that GeForce Now. A lot of you have, not all of you, but a lot of you have. Y'all know that Starfield plays 1 billion times better on GeForce Now. Y'all know this, man. Starfield, look, I'm going to tell y'all this, and we're going to talk about Starfield later, but if in order for me to play Starfield, if I had to still suffer through my PC playing it natively because it's so poorly optimized, I had to play it on console at only 30 frames per second, or even playing it on xCloud, I would have given that thing up a long time ago. I would have said, you know what? I don't care what people say. I don't care what people think. I got like 10, 15 hours of it in on PC natively. Like Popeye said, I'll take all I can stands and I can't stands no more. I'm giving my impressions now. I would have been done that a long time ago and wouldn't have cared who said what. But you know what made me push further? You know what made me even give it even more consideration? Was the fact that once I got it on the NVIDIA GeForce Now, the game plays smooth like butter, and it actually looks and plays and performs gorgeously. I'm going to get to the meat and potatoes of the game, the gameplay loop and all that. But on the NVIDIA GeForce Now, that game looks and plays. It actually has, without next gen elements, it actually feels next gen in its appearance. Like when you're traveling a planet and stuff like that, it just looks gorgeous on the NVIDIA GeForce Now. So you've had to play this game on a platform that gives you performance that less than 1% of gamers can have normally if they were to try to get these parts natively. And you put it in the fingertips to where it's accessible to so many gamers for just for a nominal fee when you look at what it's possible of doing. You can argue that all that is possible because of Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan's inquiry into this deal and him pushing it the way that he did. There was speculation that PlayStation was trying to collude. Well, I don't want to say collude because it's not collude, but PlayStation, I'm being a little over dramatic here, but PlayStation was working with Google and Amazon trying to drum up something they could throw against the wall that would make regulators not approving this deal stick. There's a lot of speculation that Jim Ryan and PlayStation was behind that. Now, not to say that Google and Amazon wouldn't have been able to drum their own, beat up on their own. But what made it effectively understandable by certain regulatory bodies as an issue, including EU, even though they passed with provisions. They said, we're okay with this deal as long as these things happen. We feel like these are going to happen, so we're not going to press the matter any further. We'll let the deal pass with the expectation that Microsoft is going to honor their part. You can surmise you don't even get there without Jim Ryan trying to get together something feasible to stop the deal and working with other companies like, look, man, this ain't in your interest. Google, Amazon, look, man, let me rap to you for a second. Y'all don't want this to happen, man, because this, that, and the third. Trust me. I'm going to go out here and talk about Call of Duty. But you get your little cloud stuff together, and you throw it out there too. And maybe one of us can get this deal stopped. Now, Jim thought originally that his, digging in regards to Call of Duty might work, but arguably, you could surmise that he had the foresight of knowing, look, there's something really amok here. Like, I feel like that, we got a point to be made about how it hurts us on the console side, but there could be something fuddy-duddy on the cloud side. I think there's something fuddy-duddy there. If the rumors are true that he helped, not that he led, but he helped communicate with companies and really ignite them and getting a lot of their stuff out, that he was an instrumental part of that. There were rumors about that back then. If that is true, then the forward approach, my man Doc Dark, he got to recognize this. Doc Dark, you might have to remake some content. Clap this. I'm talking to my good brother Doc Dark. You might have to remake some content. Somebody get Doc Dark, bring his ass to this chat. If you don't come live, we'll see him on Sunday on the VOD. But Doc, all that stuff you was talking in your video, which was a hell of a video, by the way, all that stuff where you were talking, yeah, and Xbox is doing, all that wonderful stuff, licking the lips and trying to get the ladies all aroused and rubbing the tank top, trying to do your LL Cool J in the camera, right? All that stuff you were saying in favor of Xbox being forward thinking, you might have to bring the script back out. You're gonna have to do it before the SAFTA writers go on strike for video games. You might have to bring that script back out, rewrite it a little bit, and talk about how Xbox had no intention of doing any of this until regulators started indicating that they might block this deal because of cloud. When that news started bubbling and surfacing, that's when you started seeing 10-year deals. First, the 10-year deals were with Nintendo and Valve, right? Remember that? And then when console didn't become an issue, but it was cloud, then that was transferred over to cloud. And that's why Starfield is glistening and shining and sheening over on NVIDIA GeForce Now. Xbox had no intention, man, of doing what you was praising them for, good brother. You gotta stay tuned to the Hard Knock digital culture a little bit more, Doc. I see you trying to get the ladies all worked up. I see you out there, bruh. Power to you. But, and this is going to hurt you. This is going to hurt you to realize this, Doc. You going to have to give some credit to Jim Ryan. You might have to give a little bit of credit to Jim Ryan, because if it wasn't for him doing that, you ain't pulling that NVIDIA Shield Pro out and playing Starfield with all that glistening goodness. Think about it. So yeah, so y'all want to jump on Jim, and I'm not saying Jim is my favorite CEO of all time, but if we keeping it a buck, we keeping it jiggy, Jim possibly, as the rumors are saying, or rumors have said, going behind the scenes, trying to inspire different companies to move forward and pushing back on this, that, and the other, and collecting information and passing it along to regulators in hopes of stopping this deal. if that's all true, y'all might have to give Jim his due. Cloud gamers, whoever, you don't see this approach with Microsoft, with ABK. And then look, here's the crazy thing about it. Because Jim's pushback on the console side had Microsoft so concerned that they started saying, well, we're going to craft 10-year deals. And those 10-year deals, again, led to the 10-year deals that you're seeing in the cloud. Jim was so forceful possibly in doing it. Well, no. One thing that we can't, that isn't like speculation, is that Microsoft crafted those deals primarily based off of Jim's desire to have the deal blocked. And really it was Sony's desire to have the deal blocked. Jim Ryan was simply acting in the interest of Sony. Any CEO, anybody there that was in Jim Ryan's position would have been expected to do the same, attempt to block the deal. Now, maybe they would have articulated it differently. Maybe the certain emails that really didn't help Jim's cause wouldn't have been discussed. Maybe there could have been a tighter bow on the whole argumentation of it, and we'll talk about that later. But you have to tip your hat to the effort. And the effort was committed by Jim Ryan. There's no getting around that. Xbox had the regulators just went through and approved this. There is no 10-year deals. If the regulators give no indication, or let me put it to you like this. If Jim Ryan doesn't come out there and oppose this deal as fiercely as he did, looking desperate, then there are no 10-year deals, period. There is none. Because Microsoft's approach to delivering to you wherever you are is based upon device, not ecosystem. They don't feel like that they got to make things available here and there. They feel like they got the best delivery approach. And again, I'm not saying it's tethered to reality. You look at what's going on with the Xbox Series X, how it's bottlenecked by the Series S, that whole strategy versus what PlayStation is dealing with. You got a 12.7 teraflop or 12.2, whatever teraflop device that is splitting hairs with a 10.2 at best teraflop device. Clearly your strategy wasn't the best. You ask Digital Foundry, they've spoke on it. It's to the point now to where they want you to ask developers, well, why ain't they taking advantage? They're not taking advantage of it because why would they? What's the incentive for them? It's the same thing that we saw with the Xbox One X. These are businesses at the end of the day. And I'm not saying that, because of the technology that's involved with gaming, we shouldn't have some developers just do it just for the sake of gaming. Rockstar did it. They did it with Red Dead Redemption 2, where they really went all out on the Xbox One X, but nobody else was really willing to do it. But that's because Rockstar is Rockstar. They can do whatever the hell they please. All these other publishers and developers know where their bread is buttered. PlayStation ain't got to say nothing to them. They already know. Look, and the court documents revealed how much PlayStation pays attention to Digital Foundry reviews. So if I'm out there selling double the amount of consoles on your platform, but I'm willing to go to the competing platform and make my game look better there than you consistently, how is that going to bode when PlayStation is like, look, we're looking for second party partners to make exclusive games, and they're willing to drop a whole bunch of money? Sony just went and got a whole bunch of investment, to make more exclusive games. How are you going to bode in that list of developers if you're doing that? These companies have bottom lines, and we're coming out of COVID. That's why you're not seeing it. And then on top of that, it's not as simple as just tweaking this and tweaking that on the X, because now you got to deal with the S. So developers are doing what people didn't want, what Xbox didn't want them to do anyway, which was develop for the S and then scale up, which automatically does not take advantage of the Series X. What Digital Foundry is proposing is that, look, publishers or developers develop for the S, maybe scale it up, and then tweak it later. So that's 3 times the work that developers got to go through that they don't have to go through with the PlayStation. But yet they're making double the money on PlayStation. Does that make sense to you? 3 times more. I got to develop for the S, which means that's complicated in the first place, because there are things that I'm doing for PlayStation that are easy for me to develop for, that I got to go through all these hoops and stuff to squeeze on the S and make work on the S somehow. So that's a difficulty within itself. But then because you have 2 SKUs and they have different specs, I gotta now scale that up and then, scale it up and make it work on the X. So that's double work. Then the icing on the cake is, now Digital Foundry is asking, well, after you do that double work for the lesser profitable platform, why don't you throw in a third slab of work and tweak it? Nobody's doing that, man. Not for the least selling console. Not for the least selling console, for the least selling ecosystem. So I had to take that time to elaborate on that. Shout out to, we got somebody new in the chat. Who is this? Avadol58 says, hey, I just followed you on Twitter. I would appreciate if you follow me back. Shout out to you, Avadol. I appreciate that. Cold Blood says, just say people who think it is because the dead cool story, bro, and leave it at that makes them super mad. Phil is the best double agent ever, says Cold Blood. Hold on, what's going on? How come? Okay, something's going on to where, let me see if I can refresh this. Now the comments that y'all have ain't coming up. He says, I don't like Strauss Zelnick. He talks too much about subscription. It's suspect. Now, he don't like, no, trust me. There's a lot of things to not favor about Strauss Zelnick. His thoughts towards subscription isn't one of them. He doesn't like them. And he's very blunt about it. He doesn't like him. He's very blunt, and really he's very blunt about cloud. Like he was like, yeah, we thought that cloud would do this today. The cloud means nothing to us. It's very, he's very blunt. But yeah, no, he doesn't like subscription services, cold blood. But I wanted to put that out there. Again, Microsoft had, let's get back into reality. Microsoft had no intention of delivering these 10-year deals until Jim Ryan went full throttle the best way he could, I guess, or no, the best way he knew how is the better way to describe it, because I don't like some of his approach. But the best way he knew how, he went full throttle and trying to get this deal blocked as he was supposed to. When this deal was announced, Sony lost what, 50 million in stock evaluation or something like that? I think this deal was announced in January of 2022 and something like that, or 2021, I think. And when it was announced, Sony had lost like 50 million in stock evaluation. Let me pull that up. Sony loses stock value after ABK deal announced. Oh yeah, here it goes right here. Here it goes. I'm sorry. Right here. See, y'all have these short-term memories. That's because of some of these goofballs that y'all listen. And I'm not talking about the aforementioned Doc. Doc isn't a goofball. I'm talking about these people that come up with these other notions that Jim was fired and all this other stuff. They don't understand what was going on because they have these short-term memories. They can only think of the first 5 minutes of now. Sony loses $20 billion in market value after Microsoft's massive deal to buy Activision Blizzard knocks its shares. $20 billion in a single day. $20 billion. Jim Ryan had to do this in the interest of the investors. Him not doing so would have had him fired. He definitely would have been fired. Now you can sit there and talk about the strategy. I even have my qualms with some things, some of the approach and so forth. I have some issues with that. As someone that's been in the court, like I will say, I have a problem with, well, I'll save that for later. I got that slotted for another part of this very show, so just stay tuned. But yeah, they lost $20 billion in market value after Microsoft's massive deal. That was his job. The investors were concerned. All right? And like I said, if it's not for Jim Ryan's pushback, these 10-year deals don't happen. You don't believe me? Where were the 10-year deals for Bethesda? And Bethesda's deal was the biggest deal in gaming at the time. Where were the 10-year deals for Bethesda? You want to know why there were no 10-year deals for Bethesda? Because there was no opposition to the deal. Or there was no credible or hard-hitting opposition to the deal. So Microsoft didn't even entertain it. Don't give me that bull jive. Y'all are not that, y'all can't be this stupid. Microsoft only offered the 10-year deals because they felt like it was a necessity to deal with the pushback they were getting from Sony. Those 10-year deals then translated to 10-year deals in the cloud. Once it was revealed that Microsoft was going to get stymied because of cloud activity. And then because they were so concerned, even the EU, who, with provisions passed the deal, even the EU said, yeah, you just outright buying Activision Blizzard is not okay. There are some things that you have to do in order for us to be okay with it. And that's where the 10-year deals came from. They started off the heels of the pushback from Jim Ryan. They transferred over to cloud gaming because cloud gaming was the actual roadblock. So in actuality, Xbot community, and when I say Xbot, I don't just mean Xbox fan. I'm talking about you zealots out there that are peddling this misinformation about what was definitively going on with Jim Ryan and why he's retiring. You zealots, and even my good friend, Doc Dark, he's not a zealot. He's my favorite Xbox content creator. But I don't think even he realized. I don't think even Doc Dark realized. He's not whipping out his NVIDIA Shield Pro if it's not for Jim Ryan. Hey, Doc, we need to bring back the commission, bro. That's my answer to Doc Dark. Doc Dark gets to relish in how wonderful and how beautiful Starfield looks on the NVIDIA GeForce Now, especially if you got Ultimate. I hope you got Ultimate. If you got Ultimate, bro, don't that look good? That looks fantastic, don't it? Even someone like myself, who is impartial to the game, I got a lot of things that I laud about the game, but I'm telling you, those looks, because I'm a very superficial guy, those looks don't make my playthroughs as bad. That's thanks to the power of NVIDIA GeForce Now. We don't get that as an option. Doc, you're playing it in 30 frames per second or sub 60 on your ASRock, bruh. You're playing it there and there solely, maybe console, but you're playing them there solely without all that extra juice that you're loving and experiencing now. If it isn't for the 10-year deals that were spawned by the activity of Jim Ryan. Send him some chocolates for his retirement, bruh. All right, I hope y'all clip that. Clip that. Clip that, clip that, clip that. I wish I could. Can I clip during live stream? I don't know. I wish I could. No, I can't. Somebody clipped it. How long was we in this thing? I say about an hour and 26 minutes. Clip that hour and 26 minutes. My message to Doc Dark. That's my bro. I love Doc. He's my favorite place. He's my places. He's my favorite Xbox content creator. I love him. I think, at times he's focused on battling the ponies because the ponies can be harsh. And some things we may not agree, but it's just subjective. It's his point of view versus mine. I'm not going to sit here and tell him, no, you should like this and not like that. That's silly. That's crazy. That's absurd. There's too much of that happens on Twitter or whatever. The man is allowed to like and enjoy whatever he likes and enjoys. That being said, you gotta know your roots, man. You ain't gonna like this. You gotta know your roots, man. That NVIDIA Shield Pro that you pulling out now, Doc Dark. You enjoying all that tasty goodness on Starfield on GFN Ultimate? Thank Jim. Send him his chocolates. All right, we're gonna move on. All right, that being said, what else we got going on here? All right, so that was just number one. We debunked the theory that PlayStation got a worse deal. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It's idiotic because it lacks research, and only zealots and trolls. If the trolls just troll, but if somebody takes themselves seriously as a content creator and a disseminator of news, peddling that garbage proves your lack of QCing and quality assurance and control behind your content. PlayStation did not get a worse deal. PlayStation, if you were, matter of fact, if Jim Ryan signs the 4-year deal for everything Activision, he gets fired. He definitely gets fired for that. So for those of you that wanted Jim Ryan to be definitively fired, go find a hot tub time machine, go back in time, and try to convince him in his sleep, whisper in his ear while he sleeps, to sign a 4-year deal for all things Activision. Are you kidding me? He gets 6 additional years of Call of Duty, which trumps the combination of all of the other Activision Blizzard content on PlayStation put together. We can't be this stupid. We're not. And we're not. I refuse to believe so. I think a lot of y'all just playing a role, but y'all just playing it too damn good. All right. So we trumped that. Let's get on to number 2. Number 2 is PlayStation's future looks bleak. To that I'll say this. I don't have a clip or anything like that. As a recovering Xbot myself, I can assure you, and just look on Twitter. You can even look up some of my tweets. Go look up MM2K and Andrew House. Because I did that earlier today on Twitter. Go look up at MM2K and then Andrew House. And just see some of the foolery that I was putting out there. Trying to defend Xbox. We were all out there on podcasts. Now, again, it's not as easy to search on podcasts and stuff, but Xbox community was out there in droves with the rhetoric that Andrew, because they considered a big shakeup, that Andrew House was leaving, and I think some at the bigger Sony, some changes were made there. That all this was happening because the Xbox One X was coming. A lot of us were convinced, rather, that the Xbox One X was going to bring Xbox back to its glory days. Phil and company to the Xbox community had advertised so effectively to us that the Xbox One X was going to be the experience that completely the experience that radically changed and radicalized our gaming experiences. And that wasn't true. You know what I'm saying? Was the brute force power of the box compared to its predecessors, did it give you better visuals? Yeah, but they were marginal. They were so marginal that God of War, that played on the PlayStation Slim at the time of launch, that in the PlayStation Slim at the time that it launched was $200. God of War on my $200 PlayStation Slim looked better than any game on my Xbox One X. Xbox One X. Look up, and when you say, how is that possible? The Xbox One X was, dynamically playing games at 4K, and the PlayStation 4 Slim was a 1080 machine. Here's what I suggest you do. Look up Mark Cerny and look up Rapid Pack Math. Now, all of us Xbox zealots at the time, when we heard Mark Cerny say that, we laughed, we made fun of him, all that stuff, until it finally came true and came out to fruition. Mark Cerny is a certified genius, and he is the reason why PlayStation just keeps dousing water on Xbox's hopes when it comes to performance. So what I'm basically saying is that we were making the same arguments in 2007 when Andrew House left. And he was the former SIE president when he left. And, we were like, Sony has nothing to show. All they keep showing us is God of War. This is before God of War comes out. All they keep showing E3 after E3 is God of War. God of War has no jump. Kratos has no jump. The X1X, the Xbox One X is releasing. They're scared. Everybody's running for the hills. They don't want to be there for the slaughter. This is what we was telling everybody. Just like everybody's saying right now, there's going to be a green wave. Hellblade is coming out. Forza, Starfield's opened the door. And all these, Fable is going to do all this, that, and the third, right? All that. We were saying the same exact thing last gen after Andrew House left and he retired suddenly. So we thought. Right? But here's the reality. In 2018, at that time, was PlayStation's biggest year in its 24-year history. You don't believe me? We got the internet, baby. 2018 PlayStation biggest year in 24-year history. Let me see. With a strong lineup. Let me see. 2018. Yep. Let me see. Copy link. And I think this article says that. Now, what I'm discovering with Google, Google's, okay. Here it goes right here. This is a great article. It does say, but here's what I've noticed about Google though. Google, when you're trying to look for things that are like older than 2 years, good luck. You can't find them. Like there's a Jack Tretton quote where Jack Tretton had talked about PlayStation not really caring about its execs and not really rewarding individual contribution. That matter of fact, let me see if I can find it. Jack Tretton, Sony not rewarding individual contribution. And he said that about Sony. He said they don't stands in summary. There's no direct rewarding individual. Okay. I can't. It's trying to buy. Jack Tretton states Sony not rewarding individual. When Jack Tretton left, he had said that Jack Tretton had said in a later interview that he was talked about this in a video when someone had, no, it was with Hip Hop Gamer. Now, now I remember. Jack Tritton, Hip Hop Gamer, would he go back to Sony? Now I remember. And I remember Hip Hop Gamer had this look on his face. Hold on. Let me see here. Jack Tritton, Hip Hop Gamer interview. I got to find that interview. Now I remember. Oh my gosh. Let me see here. Jack Tritton. What the hell is that? It says announced that he started now. Oh, that's not he says I gotta stay. You have to subscribe. I'ma find it. I don't want to go too far into the reservation. But Jack Tritton did an interview with Hip Hop Gamer. And in that interview that he did with Hip Hop, and shout out to Hip Hop Gamer, man. In that interview with Hip Hop Gamer, I remember Hip Hop Gamer at the end of the interview asked Jack, he was like, would you ever go back to Sony or PlayStation? And Jack Tritton, and I'm paraphrasing here, was like, no, I wouldn't go back. Because Sony doesn't, they don't reward individual contribution or notice or recognize. He said, all of us are a cog in the wheel. And he said, that's why he left. Now, what does that relate to what I'm saying in regards to Jim Ryan and all this false speculation? Is that you got these zealots out here saying, oh, PlayStation is done. It's over. Oh my gosh. No. These moves are done all the time, particularly when it comes to SIE president. And I was showing you guys this. Hold on. Let's go back here. Let me not get out of order. Sony's 2018-2019 financial year results. Most profitable year ever powered by PlayStation. In their 24-year history, this was their most profitable year. So again, as everybody was saying, PlayStation is doomed because of, the Xbox One X is coming out. Oh, and they ain't got no games. All they got is this God of War. The guy ain't got no jump button. All it took was 2 games to beat the snot out of Xbox's hope of trying to come back at all, of trying to close out the year. That the Xbox One X was symbolized their attempts to try to inch their way back the same way PlayStation started inching their way back at the end of the PlayStation 3 generation. This was Xbox's way of doing that. And Sony slapped the snot out of their mouth, out of their face, with just 2 games. God of War, Spider-Man. That's all it took. God of War, Spider-Man. Now, I'm not saying that PlayStation wasn't dominating because of the other stuff it was doing. Yeah, it definitely was. But to slap the snot out of Xbox to ensure that going into next gen, they didn't have any momentum, all it took was 2 games. God of War and Spider-Man. And we know that Wolverine is coming from Insomniac. We know Naughty Dog is working. They said a couple years ago that there were 26 games in the pipeline. I think we're at the point to where they told us about 6. There's 20 more games coming, at least, I believe, at least. Hold on one second. So yeah, for those of you that are newer, for those of you that weren't around back then, that came in with this Xbox Series X generation, and you're hearing pony, 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 and Xbox, and you're falling for the rhetoric. Your problem is you don't know the history. Because you don't know the history, then you don't understand why guys like myself were up here defending Jim Ryan's legacy and saying, hold on, don't fall for this rhetoric as is. It's a bunch of zealots trying to send you down a rabbit hole that you're not going to be able to get out of. And that's why I cordially and respectfully, in a jovial way, called out my brother Doc Dark, because he was styling and profiling, rubbing that tank top, talking about out there like Cool J. Yeah, ladies. Pulled out my NVIDIA Shield Pro. Yeah, yeah. You know how LLB. yeah. Word life. Doc Dark was out there like that, talking about how great the Starfield experience was on the NVIDIA Shield Pro. And we got to thank Xbox for that. Nah, not necessarily, because they didn't want to do it. Jim Ryan forced them to do it. If you don't have the variable of Jim Ryan, you're not enjoying that. Period. So, and y'all don't understand why all this is happening because y'all came into the show late. You don't understand the history. But you're going to get that history lesson today. So, point number 2, where they're like, oh, Xbox is doomed. I mean, PlayStation is doomed and their future looks bleak. This is why they did it. That's a farce. And we've already been here. It's like Groundhog's Day. We've already seen this day over and over again. Point number 3, out of speculation land, that we're bringing you back into reality. Point number 3 is Phil Spencer is still around, so he must be the more successful leader. And here's the fact of the matter on that. That's also a comment guided in ignorance. Here's the fact of the matter, y'all. SIE presidents just don't last that long since the Xbox 360 days. Let's take a look. This is a tweet that I put out there. For those of you who think Ryan stepped down is news of the century, consider this. Since 2007, 2 years after the launch of the Xbox 360, PlayStation's first formidable competitor, SIE presidents have lasted 5 years max. Jim Ryan officially departs within the same time frame. Newsworthy, not earth-shattering. And it shows you. Ken Kutagari was SIE president from 93 to 2007. That's 14 years. And it says that Ken, please note that Ken served as the president of Sony Computer Entertainment, which is what SIE was, the predecessor of Sony Interactive Entertainment. Then Xbox comes out in 2000, and the Xbox 360 comes out in 2005. It dominates, it kills. PlayStation is at a loss because they just went on the E3 stage and said, well, if you really want this machine, you better go get you a second job. Things are in a downward spiral that is scary for Sony. And Ken is tossed out. Kaz now is the head of SIE. Okay. says lasts from 2007 to 2012. And in 2012, Andrew House takes over SIE. The aforementioned Andrew House. Andrew House leads from 2012 to 2017. And then John Cadora, who's interim for Andrew, because Andrew retired, takes over in 2017 to 2019. So he only takes over for 2 years. Then Jim Ryan takes over in 2019, and he's going to leave in 2024. So that's what, 5 years. And then there's Katori, right? What's his name? I'm sorry, Totoki, who is going to take over for Jim Ryan in an interim level for maybe a couple of years. Like how John Cadora took over for a couple of years after Andrew House decided to retire. So the fact of the matter is that SIE presidents just don't stay forever. Ever since the Xbox 360, which was a major threat to the PlayStation, people still want to debate, oh, PlayStation still won that. Now I look at the software sales, which this is all about, and say no. Xbox 360 killed them in software sales. The red ring of death. I know people bought new consoles because that's not it. Each new console didn't give them a new game. Xbox still killed in software. So since that whole horror fest in the eyes of PlayStation, they've made sure that the SIE president rotates at a certain level. I guess they want to keep that role fresh. Now, does this completely suggest that Jim Ryan maybe wasn't pushed into retirement? And why would he be pushed into retirement? We'll talk about that later. Or is this just indicative that role at SIE president has become so cumbersome and such a headache that the most people can tolerate is 5 years? The next thing is that Jim never said, number 4, is people call Jim Ryan a liar for the whole "we believe in generations." Here's the reality of it. Jim never said we believe in generations in the context of all of our games are going to go, or all of our PlayStation 5 games will only be available there. He never said that. He was misquoted, and he was misquoted and taken out of context by the like of Video Game Chronicles. I'm going to show you guys this. It says, Sony says PlayStation 5 is aiming for the best value, but not necessarily the lowest price. And the article reads, it says, speaking to GameIndustry.biz, oh, hold on. This is while video game sales have actually increased during the coronavirus pandemic, the long-term implications for the industry are less certain, and many consumers have not been in a position to afford new hardware and when it launches this holiday season. Speaking to GameIndustry.biz, Sony Interactive CEO Jim Ryan claimed that gaming was one business that historically benefited from economically difficult times. He says it's quite logical that people don't have money to go outside to stay at home, yada, yada, yada. He says Ryan also told that in contrast to Xbox's cross-generation release strategy, Sony isn't planning to make new PlayStation 5 games playable on its previous generation console. I want to highlight this. Let's highlight that. This is what Video Game Chronicles wrote in their article. Ryan told Game Industry Biz that in contrast to Xbox's cross-gen release strategy, Sony isn't planning to make new PlayStation 5 games playable on its previous generation console. So what they're basically saying in this article is that Jim Ryan not alludes but says that PlayStation games, new games that come out on PlayStation 5 will be PlayStation 5 only, and they tether that to we believe in generations. They say we have always said that we believe in generations. He said we believe that, and this is a direct quote though from that article. We have always said that we believe in generations. We believe that when you go through all the trouble of creating next gen console, that it should include features and benefits that previous generations don't include, and that in our view, people should make games that can make the most of these features. Okay, hold on one second. All right, here is the problem with that quote, placed as it is in this article. It does not include the proper context. Let me show you the proper context. Let's go to the GameIndustry.biz article. And here it goes right here. This is the aforementioned article. Let me find where he says, okay, here it goes. So it says one way to keep PlayStation 4 users engaged would be to make upcoming PlayStation 5 games playable on the older machines, just like Microsoft is proposing with its Xbox Series X games being playable on Xbox One. Yet Ryan says that's not something PlayStation is interested in doing. We have always said that we believe in generations. We believe the trouble of creating a next-gen console, that it should include features and benefits that previous generations does not include, and that in our view, people should make games that can make the most of the features. We do believe in generations, and whether that's the DualSense controller, whether it's the 3D audio, whether it's the multiple ways that the SSD can be used, we are thinking that it's time to give PlayStation community something new, something different that can really be enjoyed on the PlayStation 5. I hate when this app does not continue to highlight. So what he's not saying is we are not going to make games playable on both at all. He's saying we're not taking the Xbox approach. The Xbox approach is that we want to make everything playable on the PlayStation 4 and on the PlayStation 5. We don't believe in that. We believe in generations. Let's go back to the VGC article that brings up the aforementioned Xbox take. Let me see, where's the Xbox article? The Bloomberg. Oh, here it goes, right here. And he's responding to this. Xbox's exclusives not part of Microsoft's launch strategy. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about launch games being exclusive to the Series X and not coming to Xbox One or not coming to, or series consoles not coming to Xbox One and all. I don't think they launched this or they talked about this Series S yet. What is the date on this? Yeah, as of January 2020, I don't think they revealed that there was a Series S yet. So the only console that they talked about that they revealed in, I think in the 2019, what was that, Game Award show? Yeah, they revealed that in the Game Award show in 2019 or early 2020, whenever it was. They only revealed the Series X. So what Microsoft is saying here is that the first party titles that are released over the next year or two, expect all of them to be cross-gen. That's what they're saying. They're not saying, so Jim Ryan is not replying to all PlayStation games. He's saying, look, I feel like we definitely should have games that take advantage of 3D audio, the SSD, and the DualSense controller. Therefore, you have games, even the ASRock game, you have the Demon Souls remake, you have Returnal, you have Ratchet and Clank that are taking advantage of that stuff that are exclusive to the PlayStation 5. Not that we think all games should be exclusive to the PlayStation 5. He's responding, again, everybody is saying one way to keep PlayStation 4 users engaged would be to make upcoming PlayStation 5 games playable on older machines, just like Microsoft is proposing with its Xbox Series X games. What is Microsoft proposing? They're proposing that first-party titles released over the next year or two, expect them all to be cross-gen. Jim Ryan is simply saying, we don't believe that they all should be cross-gen. We believe that that there should be some generational things even at launch that we display, that we make games for, that take advantage of the PlayStation 5. So therefore, he never said that all PlayStation 5 games at launch would be exclusive to the PlayStation 5. He never said that. He was responding to what Phil Spencer's strategy was, that all of their games would be. But people like VGC took it out of context, and they have yet to correct it. And as a co-owner of one publication and the owner of another, I hate digging on my colleagues publicly, but that type of cascading of erroneous information because people didn't kick the tires and get the proper context is rampant in these parts. It's rampant. Again, Jim Ryan never said that he believed in generations to the point to where all PlayStation 5 games from that point forward from launch are going to be on PlayStation, all new games. He was saying that in contrast to what Phil Spencer is doing over here, we do believe in generations. We do think that there are things that should take advantage of the DualSense controller. We do think that there are things that should take advantage of the 3D audio. We do think that there should be things that take over the SSD. So we do think there should be things that take over that take advantage of the DualSense. The robot game. I'm not quite sure what takes advantage of 3D audio at launch. Maybe Demon Souls. Maybe Returnal. Maybe all of those games that are exclusive to PlayStation 5. We do think whether it's the multiple SSD that can be used, Ratchet and Clank. That's what they're talking about. We do think there should be content that takes advantage of the PlayStation 5 that cannot release on the PlayStation 4 as well. Not all of it is going to release on the PlayStation 5. But that runs rampant, and unfortunately, people don't kick the tires. I'm going to be honest with you. When it was revealed that, what's the name of that game? When it was revealed that God of War and Horizon Forbidden West wouldn't be exclusive to PlayStation 5, I fell for that rhetoric. I said, oh, Jim Ryan lied. Because I didn't realize at that time how irresponsible the gaming media was. I knew there was issues. But I didn't understand how bad and the lengths they would go to cascade false information and pass an agenda. I knew they didn't do their homework all the time. I knew that. But again, I didn't understand the levity of how they would go to ensure misinformation was passed down until I started reporting on Stadia. And say what you want about the platform, say what you want about cloud gaming. 90% of the stuff that you were told about that platform was a flat out lie, was wrong, was misleading. And the thing that irked me is that we had some quote unquote within the Stadia community was like, oh, you guys are being so anal. All they got wrong was this part or that part. Well, that part could have been significant enough to a gamer to where they'll say, oh, I got to pay $9.99 and buy the game. I don't want to do that. That is important. It's not how many things they got wrong out of the 6,500 words that they wrote. Oh, it's only one sentence. They only got 40 characters wrong on it. That don't matter. Those 40 characters that they got wrong could be enough to sway a gamer away and say, oh, if I got to pay $9.99, if I got to be invested in Stadia Pro in order to play on Stadia, I'm out. Do you know how many people I talked to after the fact and made them realize they're like, oh, I didn't? I could have just bought a game online and played it? Oh, I didn't. Oh, man, that sucks. Well, the games are always full price. No, they ain't. There are plenty of sales on Stadia, and not all of them were tagged as Stadia Pro members. You actually had goof nuts, part of the community that was okay in that. Oh, it's only one sentence. That sentence could have been detrimental enough. Well, if regurgitated enough, could mislead tens of thousands, if not millions of people. What are you talking about? And the same apply. And then that's when I realized how bad it is in gaming journalism. It's horrible. It is horrible. But yeah, unfortunately, we still got publications that have an agenda, that lean one way or another. They have a certain agenda, and they propagandize and cascade fake, false information purposely at times. Or when they get enlightened on the correct information, they refuse to correct it because that story helped push their agenda, and they don't want to. It's not about them being embarrassed that they made a mistake. They want that agenda still to be pushed. So you getting factual information isn't important. It's about getting you to ride a certain wave. I didn't understand how endemic it was to gaming journalism until I started covering Stadia. Next thing that we're going to debunk. Jim, or the insinuation that Jim is pushing away console exclusivity is a false narrative as well. I want to show you guys two things that push back on this quite effectively. And these are policies that I'm not even a fan of. I'm gonna be honest with you. Because I come out on the side of I don't get what the big deal is. I mean, I understand it, but I don't get what the big deal is from the community. This is where I think the PlayStation community is off of its rocker, and they're actually becoming a detriment to the growth of PlayStation because of it, for the most silliest and most foolish reasons. Here's why. So the theory is, again, that Jim is watering down the PlayStation brand because, and its effectiveness, because he's pushing too hard away from console exclusivity. Here are two elements in which that's a crock of baloney. Number one, PlayStation games will wait at least a year before their PC release, except for live service titles. So PlayStation has said, we are not putting our games on PC in less than a year than the release on their console. The theory that PlayStation would even try to do this is false. But I don't see what the issue is if they were to try it, except for one thing. But this doesn't come up in their arguments. Trying to develop a game for console, then ensure that it perfectly works on PC as well, and that it's ported properly on PC, seems to be a daunting task. One that I will give Xbox has on lock, because since last generation, they have worked to ensure that games seamlessly work from Xbox to PC. It is a seamless, like when I go from native PC to, Xbox to cloud, it's very seamless. That technology wise, Xbox has mastered. Now, the actual delivery systems themselves, they may have their issues. Like we know Windows has issues. We know the console has its issues and bottlenecks because of the S. We know the cloud has its issues. But the seamless transition that you deal with from all three parameters is awesome. And PlayStation, they don't have that technical gift yet, the way Microsoft does, as far as the seamless nature of that, because they haven't been at it as long as Xbox. So it takes them a lot more effort, it feels, and time to get their PC games on par, because PlayStation generally makes games, around their console. Their console is their bread and butter. This foray in the PC is a new venture for them, but it's a venture that they feel can be quite lucrative. So for them, it makes sense to stagger the launches on PC. I don't know if a year is necessary, even though in some occasions it looks like that a year may not even be enough, because how the state of most of the PlayStation releases have been fine, but Last of Us 2 was horrendous. So really, I'll take that back. I don't know if it needs to be a year. I think that's being pushed out because of this whole fanboy pandemic that would run amok if they did have it close to day and date. But I think PlayStation could probably get away with 6 months after launch, but that's too close for their fanboys who would cause too much of a heartache and reputational risk if they were to do something like that. So they flung it out to a year. But a year is way more than enough time for the atypical PlayStation game to get its just due on console, and then have PC gamers that may be interested in playing it finally being able to enjoy it. Because here's the fact of the matter. PC gamers in general are not going to flock to console to play a game, just to play one or two games every so often. They're looking for value proposition. That's why games generally are cheaper on PC and stuff like. They're looking for all that stuff, right? And this is why they like Game Pass so much. That's why PC Game Pass does better on PC than the console version does. They are not going to go through a $400 or $500 paywall just to play God of War. They just won't experience it. Or they'll wait. They'll even be willing to wait until the following gen. They'll wait until that game is emulated. You know what I'm saying? After the next gen comes up. All in that time, Sony is missing out on a huge gaming sector. Excuse me, a sector they can really benefit from. So I don't get the hysteria of PlayStation releasing their games on PC. It's not like you're going to see swaths of gamers go and build a PC, even deal with PC gaming, and even have the resources to in PC to even play these games after they built their rig. That's not happening. And now that they've dedicated themselves to a year out, it definitely isn't happening. But you still get people that bellyache over it, which again to me is extremely silly. I heard people say, "Oh, they're gonna pirate the game or whatever." So what? It's nobody that's going to play the PlayStation game on call. There is nobody that's the target. There's absolutely nobody. I can guarantee you. There is nobody. There is nobody that's part of the target demo of PlayStation that's going to sit there and say, you know what? I'm going to wait a year. I'm atypically a console gamer, but I'm going to wait that year for the game to come to PC so I can pirate it. There is no gamer that is like, you know what? I was going to get a PlayStation 5. But because their games are coming to PC, I'm going to wait a year. No, I'm not going to get a PlayStation 5 now. I'm going to wait a year for those games to come to PC and pirate. That said person that's like, when the game comes to PC, I'm going to pirate it, is somebody that was never part of the console demographic in the first place. And if they are willing to wait for it to come to PC so they can pirate it, that means they're a cheapskate. Because normally when the games are pirated, you got to go through all this crap to get the crack and do all this stuff, right? So the game is playable. And if you're doing all that, you're a cheapskate. And if you're a cheapskate, you were never buying a PlayStation console in the first place. There is nobody under that scenario. So my PlayStation, my ponies, stop that. It's foolery. It makes no sense. Now you're sounding stupid. If y'all don't want games day and date on PC, fine. I'll give that to you. because I don't think PlayStation is in a place to support simultaneous releases on PC and console. That would be a mess. Let them stagger the launches. You want to wait a year? Fine, whatever. But to still bellyache after a year? Stop. This is extra revenue. Even with the pirated copies, this is extra revenue that PlayStation is going to see now. That's going to add to the pot of AAA genre-defining games that you get to see. Nothing is being compromised of any significance. There is no PlayStation gamer that would have bought a console and bought the games on console that is now going to transition to, I'm going to pay more to create a rig. And that doesn't make any sense. I'm going to pay double or triple the paywall in building a rig that can even play this game so I can pirate it. That doesn't make any sense. Now you guys are sounding stupid. Stop it. But that's what you deal. Stupid is as stupid it does. This is what you deal with when you're dealing with the console war lords and the zealots. Here goes part 2 of all that. Of PlayStation is moving away from the console, which is stupid. Sony's new portable PlayStation launches on November 15th for $109. I wish it was $1. $199.99. This allows you to play your PlayStation games on the go as long as you have obtainable Wi-Fi. It's going to stream your game that you've purchased on PlayStation to your handheld. The only problem is that in order for you to utilize this, you can't just buy PlayStation games and play them on the PlayStation Portal. Your PlayStation Portal will connect remotely to your PlayStation over Wi-Fi, so you'll be able to swiftly jump from playing on your PlayStation to your Portal. PlayStation Portal can only play games that are installed on your PlayStation 5 and use the DualSense controller. You cannot use this thing unless you have a PlayStation 5. There is a paywall in order to play this on the go. You cannot simply buy this thing and play it on the go. You have to have a PlayStation 5. So even I don't want to say cloud, even the streaming strategy for PlayStation is tethered to the console. So if you want to play games day and date on PlayStation, you can't do it on PC, and you currently can't do it on the go unless you own a PlayStation. If you don't own a PlayStation, the day and date access to the top-notch PlayStation games, you're just not going to be able to opine. Our last point here is that number 6 is Jim Ryan is purely focused on games as a service. I want to tell you guys, I don't have any direct link on this. I'll just I do have links, but I'll just give you a couple of quotes so we can move on. In 2019, Sony made its strategy abundantly clear. Sony, under Jim Ryan, Sony said that they will not leave the single player games behind completely. In 2019, the company invested 88% of its budget in single player games, with 12% allocated for live services, and this balance will begin to shift in 2023. All right. Now people may say, see, this is 2023, it's beginning to shift. This was already advertised. They're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Jim wasn't trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Then, in addition to that, in a Q&A session, really like a week before Jim Ryan announced his retirement, he said PlayStation is still dedicated to single player experiences. And it says Jim Ryan confirmed that this was focused during a Q&A session. The company remains committed to developing graphically stunning and narrative-driven single-player games. Those games are not going anywhere. As CEO, or rather president of SIE, Jim is tasked at looking at where PlayStation is financially and how they can grow the business. They can't just be complacent. They can't just sit still. And they're not going to do the things like lost lead and try to pump up a subscription service like Xbox is trying to do. So they looked at the top 10 games, and this is the point that is very contentious between me and Cold Blood. And I say, Cold Blood, look at the top 20 games that are played on PlayStation. 17 of those 20 games are games as a service. And Sony doesn't have any. So if Sony starts getting into business and developing games as a service, that's potential revenue growth that can help PlayStation skyrocket even more. I would rather them try that than for them to, again, try to pump up a subscription service as their premier, because I don't want anything that's going to dilute the prowess of their lineup. If they start investing more into games as a service with competent teams, they wouldn't bought Bungie, I'm all for it. And they said that single player games of their first party studios are still a focus. And they're still working with other developers that still make the same thing, like Square Enix. So where there's any gap because of the reallocation of investment, they still got phenomenal second party deals that are going to knock the roof off. Like look at Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Look at Final Fantasy 16. They still have single player experiences that are being provided. Look, single player experiences that are being provided that are exclusive to the platform and to the ecosystem. So with that said, let's move on to the actual verdict. What are my thoughts on all this? Honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you. Now I've said all that, but I want you to bear with me when I say this because this might shock you. But I'm only being honest here. We're very transparent here, but our thought process, regardless of how off the wall it may be, we let the facts guide us. I'm gonna be honest with you. Something in me does feel that the ABK CMA provisional approval timing with this is too coincidental. Like I've tweeted, said, I do think that Jim Ryan's quote unquote retirement is somehow tethered to this. That said, I have no proof of it being a trigger. Those are just my instinctive feelings. Even if it is a trigger, it's definitely not for the reasons that people are insinuating on the internet. What am I talking about? Take a look at this. I said, Jim Ryan retiring is an interesting situation. Do I think the timing and inevitable close of ABK is too coincidental? Yeah. Do I have proof? No. And will this cause much disruption at PlayStation? No. As I showed you earlier, PlayStation, they number one, this is within the normal time frame that SIE presidents have left since the 360 era, and Jack Tretton told you himself, the way that PlayStation is designed, there's a certain direction they want to go into, and then they put the best person they feel like that can drive that direction in at that time. And then as time changes and they change direction, that person gets yanked out and a new person gets put in. He said Sony does not recognize individual effort. It's like people are just more or less cogs in the wheel. That's what he said to Hip Hop Gamer in that interview. So as Jack Tretton informed us, execs are just a cog in a bigger wheel. But I wanted to underscore this. My speculation isn't he was let go because he challenged the APK deal. That's stupid. If anything, as I showed you earlier, and Jim Ryan challenging the deal, PlayStation got a better result. Gamers in general got a better result. The 10-year deals are a direct result of Jim Ryan forcefully challenging this deal. And in PlayStation, the deal that they put in front of them was a 4-year deal for everything. PlayStation doesn't care about everything when it comes to ABK. As revealed in the letter, even with Call of Duty, or revealed in the emails from the court case, even with Call of Duty, Jim feels that the APK deal is way too overvalued. All PlayStation cared about was Call of Duty. And they got the thing that they really cared about out of this whole ABK ordeal for an additional 6 years. That premise is false. I will say that it is plausible that maybe they thought he could have done better. Maybe people were upset with people on the board or whoever were upset about the revelation of the emails where he said, we're going to be okay. That was contradictory on surface. Not if you look at things behind the scenes, but what has to be understood is that if you look at the technicalities of it, it wasn't contradictory. But what you got to understand is that the judges and even the regulators that were against it don't understand the nuance here. They can only understand and articulate what's going on the surface. So that email, even though it was internal, it was, to communicate a certain thing, it was too transparent. And they feel like Jim, and maybe they feel like Jim should have known better, because if there is a court case, communications are going to be requested and pulled. They should have known that. That maybe he should have known that. Maybe that's the sentiment. Maybe they're thinking, you know what? Because I'm going to tell you this, just like I showed you earlier, PlayStation doesn't want to just beat Xbox. They want to obliterate them. That board is still probably shaking over what happened during the 360 generation. PlayStation was close to closing shop, or Sony was. They lost $6 billion, which doesn't sound like a lot now, but was a lot back then during that whole ordeal. They were on the brink. Those were very scary days over at PlayStation. And PlayStation, not only just because those days were scary, but PlayStation has obliterated its competition since they've come on the scene. They want to obliterate Xbox. They're beating them handily. It's embarrassing in a lot of ways, but they're not obliterating them the way that they've obliterated everyone else. And maybe those execs or those board members are looking and saying, you know what? Maybe if you would have done this, or Jim, you should have done that. And, like you could have even possibly have had this deal blocked. Maybe Jim was hearing that, and maybe Jim didn't appreciate that. Or maybe the insinuation is, Jim, you muffed up. And maybe Jim is looking at all the accomplishments that he did make. And he said, you know what? In my 30 plus years here, I've never felt more underappreciated. I mean, they're saying all these nice things about him here, but I'm telling you, and ponies won't admit to this, but one thing from my Xbox fanboy days that is static. PlayStation was shook, and they still are. And a lot of and you know what? A lot of Xbox people do comment, which I don't exactly disagree with in entirety. A lot of Xbox people comment and say, damn, a lot of these PlayStation content creators talk more about Xbox than they celebrate PlayStation. I mean, that's one thing I will give the Xbox content creators. Do they hate on PlayStation? Oh yeah, but you see them consistently just on their own, not even bringing up PlayStation. They're celebrating Xbox. I will admit that. They'll sit there and gloat about Xbox in a way to where they're not even talking about PlayStation. And it seems to be a trigger point for a lot of PlayStation people. I will say this though, understandably so. Like when you take Starfield, for instance, and you see a tweet, oh, this is the epitome of what a stellar RPG experience is. And you're playing the exact same level that I played, that there was nothing innovative in that level or in that mission that happened. You are capping like a mofo here. That does trigger the PlayStation community. Why? Because during the height of the competition that 360 presented, those same PlayStation people were Xbox gamers. And they gave it to the PlayStation 3 gamers. This is trash. Look at this Call of Duty. Look at Halo. Look, they were giving it to the PlayStation 3 people. This is trash. This is horrible. Oh, I mean, look, I was on the GameSpot chat boards where I got banned from on numerous occasions. And it was horrible. And I misspoke. Not those same people were, but there were a lot of PlayStation gamers that when the PlayStation 3 came and disappointed them, they converted to 360, and they were brutal. They were brutal. And those of us that were Sony haters, we were brutal along with them. It was brutal on Sony gamers. I'm telling you, if you were a dedicated Sony gamer in those days, you were lambasted 20, your ass was lambasted 24/7. There was no mercy. Like, imagine when the pony comes in and pisses on your parade. Imagine that happening times 1,000. So in lieu of the PlayStation 4 now taking back the mantle, those same people that got crapped on constantly from even some of their own former PlayStation 2 colleagues that converted to the 360, when those people came back, those dedicated PlayStation 3, which are now PlayStation 4 gamers, or which were then PlayStation 4 gamers, they came back with the fury. They came back with the fury because they were so lambasted in the 360 days, and they were shook. And any and everything that was celebrated about Xbox, they piled on. And that tradition continues today. But I'm going to say this that is going to be very controversial. Even though back then, and I know this is all subjective, but I'm going to say it anyway. Even though when it was being done back in the Xbox One days, I mean, I was a victim of it. I was on podcasts with other Xbox gamers and content creators and was being attacked simply because I liked Xbox. Not even for saying anything bad about PlayStation. Being attacked simply because I preferred Xbox. Back then, the pile-on was rabid. Now I will say it's petty. Because, yeah, as soon as you see somebody celebrating something for Xbox, you on it. And you're saying, oh, this isn't that great. And yes, there's a lot of people out here that do a lot more rebuttal. Or I'll put it like this. I won't say it's because console warring is petty, period. You know, it's just pettiness and people just pulling each other's chain. That's admitted across the board. I will say it is more contrary. It's less erratic and more contrarian this time around. In the Xbox One days, it was just erratic, rabid hate behavior. Now it's just contrarian. It's like, but it's contrarian, I'm going to say, with a sprinkle of, yeah, you're right. I am seeing people trying to objectively submit things as this is the greatest of all time. This is the best iteration of the, and it's not the case. And I know it being great is a subjective thing individually. But for instance, when I go on Twitter and I see people clamoring over certain missions in Starfield that not just me, but the general populace that is interacting with said mission just think is mediocre, it kind of gives a little credence to some of these contrarian ponies out here that are kind of raining on your parade. Because the fact of the matter is, it ain't a parade. A lot of y'all are just walking around with a pencil and a cup, and there's only like 3 of y'all. And y'all want to make it seem like that this is some granular thing happening. And really, the contrarian pony It's really just shaking you back into reality a lot of times now. See, last generation, when it was just obsessive hate, and that obsessive hate was fueled by the 360 generation, and how those dedicated ponies were just hammered. Dedicated ponies like my brother Cold Blood Sensei. He was if he was on a GameSpot message board, he was hammered. But those people that stuck it through and really enjoyed the PlayStation 3 generation, it was tough for them online going against the Xbox people. Again, because a lot of their friends that were PlayStation 2 gamers abandoned them and jumped in on the ruckus. And then that obsessive hate, it turned into obsessive hate during the Xbox One generation. But now it's more or less like a petty contrarian nature that a lot of times is right. Because here, let me pull up the tweet. Mighty Keith, who's a PlayStation enthusiast and a creator, and he favors PlayStation and he jokes about it, and again, it's a pettiness, but it's like a tongue-in-cheek pettiness. When he says what he says in favor of PlayStation versus Xbox, right? Here, he put out this tweet. Let me put it out. Link. He put this out here. And Mighty Keith has said, man, this has to be some type of mental illness. And he has these quotes by this particular Xbox zealot that says the Xbox and PlayStation have different communities. And they're showing this people doing the X sign, and then and even this is the riot that happened because that streamer said he was giving away free PlayStations, and then this bullpucky about what Xbox doesn't, what PlayStation doesn't offer, and all this other stuff, right? And then how Xbox and PlayStation do loading screens is very different. One is a beautiful shot of a planet. One is the back of a dude's head with some gunk in a jar, right? And then he says, I'm concerned about the future of PlayStation, not gonna lie, right? And look, people can say all they want that, oh, this dude he's an outlier. He's not a representative of the community and blah. I'm going to name names. I'm going to do it. I'm going to name names. I have nothing against these accounts because they're not just troll accounts. They're evangelist marketing accounts. Because they step in that realm of where they over glorify certain elements of Xbox gaming to where even the subjectivity of it has to be questioned. Like, no, you can't be serious about this. It's like if you see someone eating a sandwich and they're like, oh, this is a good sandwich. And you look at the sandwich, you're like, oh, that's that chicken sandwich from Arby's. I don't really care for that. And they'll look at you and they're like, okay, well, I do. That's one thing. But when you see the person eating a sandwich and they're like, oh my God, oh, and they start stripping their butt naked down to the party socks. Oh, and they're trying to grab attention and they're gyrating their genitalia all in front of you and on you, right? Over a chicken sandwich. Like I've seen the simile to that online with some of these takes that people have about Xbox gaming, right? You'll see the typical when it comes to the ponies. Yeah, PlayStation's the best, this, that, and the other, right? But I'm seeing some real friend stuff out here, right? On the Xbox side. And this is one of the French players. And there's the Andrea Pincini and the Peter Ovo. There's those people, right? Now you can sit there and say, oh, these guys are just outliers, right? And so what? That's not indicative of the community. That's bullpucky. Andrea Pincini, the Snap Blast Play, Peter Ovio, they get more likes and views out of the Xbox community than anybody. Out of anybody. I mean, this may be the lowest like set that he'll get is 192 views, which when I see a lot of the trolling from the PlayStation community, most of it, if a PlayStation troll is getting like over 250 likes, that's a good tweet for them. That's nothing for an Xbox person that's putting out anti-PlayStation stuff, right? Like for their anti-PlayStation posts, these guys are like in the thousands sometimes. In the thousands. It's a whole different ball game this generation. So Keith said Mighty Keith said what he said. He said, this got to be some type of mental illness. And he's like, can y'all point me towards the PlayStation version of these guys' accounts? Because he's like legitimately saying, I know there's PlayStation, but he's like, I want to make a comparison. I feel. He's like, I want to make a comparison. He said, because so far I only see this from Xbox heads, and I'm starting to think it's cult behavior. And I told him, I was like, look, bro, fanboys and zealots are everywhere, but it's more severe this time around over there. Take it from a recovering Xbox fanboy myself. Like I said, I was on the front lines last gen. I was definitely there on the 360 on the front lines, just going crazy. Trust me. But I was going crazy over something substantive. You know what I'm saying? Like Xbox was generally considered the best gaming platform out there for genre defining gaming. And they were tearing it up on the software side. I was like, the lunacy has been elevated this gen due to Xbox's own increased focus on evangelism marketing. And I gave him a link to what event, because I don't think a lot of people understand where this rabid activity is coming from. And again, these are not outliers. When there's fanboys like this everywhere. You see these type of posts on both sides, but you don't see the reception to these types of posts on both sides. You don't see it. Like 537 likes for this guy, that's small potatoes. You see this type of reception you don't see this type of reception on both sides. The numbers don't lie. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. The numbers are there. So, if it is a trigger, it's not for the silly reasons that people say it is. That's just coming from Xbox zealots and rhetoric throwers. And it's also possible, when I say that, I'm talking about why Jim's retirement could have been triggered from the whole APK announcement. It could have been, look, you know what? Jim, I mean, we are happy that you put up an effort, but we feel like that was the results. I mean, because look, in the Japanese culture, when it comes to business, there's what do they call it? The shame or honor. Yeah, just the shame and honor. There's no nuance. It's either something you do brings you honor or something you do brings you shame. They don't, there is no gray. And so if the board actually felt like, well, yeah, all right, you got us a better deal, but hey, anybody could have done that. Like, where was this discovery of emails where you said this? And that, like, why would you say something like that, Jim, when there's no, why would you, when there's an ongoing investigation going on, that, we're going to head in this direction. Why would you do that? Why would you even say anything like this? Why wouldn't you say something like this in private and not in something that's traceable? Like, if that was leading towards, well, the end result, even though they got a better deal out of it, is still dishonorable because things didn't go as well as we wanted them to go. Meaning the deal doesn't go through. We feel like that you had enough in your possession to ensure that the deal didn't go through, Jim, with you being the mouthpiece. If that was the direction that the board was in, Jim could have very easily said, you know what, it ain't worth this. It ain't worth it. I'm done. I'm out. Also, it's likely implausible that Jim just got worn out. Jim says that he's an introverted person that don't really like being on the stage. Like he was talking to GameIndustry.biz where they talked about two things: his nervousness in speaking and presenting, and he's the leader of SIE, so he can't avoid that, and how he had to do it for the first time on behalf of Andrew House, who was at the time the head of SIE. And even the guy from GameIndustry.biz said, "You seem nervous." Did he said, "Yeah." He said, "It's just not something that's natural for me." And also, he was worn out by the traveling. He even said that back then. He says, and also, so 5 years with hold on one second. So 5 years with such scrutiny, let's just say if his efforts weren't fully appreciated, as far as the ABK deal, it could have been a strict Jim, make sure this thing doesn't go through. Anything else is dishonorable. You got to find a way to make this happen. And that's where I think the rumors may have been. Because that is part of the Japanese business culture. At the very beginning of this, after them losing $20 billion just for the deal being announced, along the way, someone could have said, Jim, you got to make sure that this deal doesn't go through. Anything less is not honorable. And with the weight of that on his shoulders, now that it seems like it's coming through, that could have just been a cat, that could, what do they call that? Seppuku, where you like, you do something dishonorable in ancient Japan, you got to grab them two swords, them two blades. Look, seppuku, look it up. I'm not going to get into that here because it's regarding a controversial topic that can get this podcast flag, but check it out. Yeah, him retiring in light of that could have been okay. If that's how y'all feel, maybe they were like, all right, well, you did come up with a better prospect, but he still could have been getting jeers or looks and things like that. Like, he's like, man, I'm not gonna deal with this. Or maybe they were happy with the end result. Maybe it wasn't dishonorable. Maybe they were happy with the end result. He sees it for what it is. He realizes that, hey, this is not going to be the end of the world for PlayStation. Where he knows what's coming down the pike, just like Andrew House knew what was coming down the pike. The last 5 years were hell for him. Just like those 5 years for Andrew House were hell, as PlayStation was really fighting to keep their necks on Xbox with the launch of that generation and everything, and make a comeback. And maybe he just was like, you know what? This is tough, man. I'm done. You know what I'm saying? I'm done. We don't know. Just like with Andrew House, Jim Ryan could be leaving at a time where PlayStation is about to explode. Remember in 2017? I think Uncharted 4 had came out. But people really didn't know how God of War was going to land. They had no idea. They didn't know how Spider-Man was going to land. And they were looking at it like, that's it? That's all you got? You don't know. Maybe Jim is like, okay, I'm done. This whole ABK ordeal was tiring. I got to travel all over the world. I'm done. I know what's coming out next year and beyond. They're in a great place. I can walk out with my head high. Who knows? Regardless, Jim has left PlayStation at a very high point that he led. I know there's this argument that, prior to him taking over, like what Katora and Sean Layton did, really set up the groundwork. That's business. The groundwork was set up for that was set up for Layton and Katora. Like Jack Tretton did a lot of things to get PlayStation out of the rut that it was in. That it was in with the prior head of SIE. Them last few years, he really changed things around with PlayStation Plus and Demon Souls and all those games that came out and stuff like that. Right? And then, Layton and Katora. They did a hell of a job with Yoshida, making sure that great content was curated. But Jim Ryan still had to survive the onslaught of enthusiasm for the Xbox, being labeled of the weaker console and having less favorable backwards compatibility and having a supply constraint. It wasn't all real, and then having to deal with the fact that he was called a liar because of how We Believe in Generations was misinterpreted. It wasn't all roses for Jim Ryan. It wasn't. And then in the midst of the PlayStation community on Twitter being concerned about PlayStation giving any edge to Xbox, there were multiple calls for him to be terminated, to be let go. Jim Ryan's probably like, man, look, I have some of the most successful numbers ever that I had to lead and navigate. You can sit there and say, oh, Sean Layton and Couture guy just, gave him the best plane ever. But if you don't know how to navigate the plane, what does it matter? And he still had to lead through difficult things. And it wasn't all peaches and roses when Kadora and Sean Layton left, or Kadora, particularly when Sean Layton left. In 2019, when Sean Layton left, PlayStation's stock price was plummeting because they had an awful 2019 in comparison to 2018. Sony's shares were plummeting, So when Sean Layton when Herman Holst and Jim Ryan took over, they weren't in the best of situations. Death Stranding fell flat. Days Gone was a bust critically. Amongst reviewers, that affected its sales. And people generally were like, all you got is PlayStation. All you got is God of War and Horizon. And God of War looks like DLC. You had the creator of God of War himself say that. God of War Ragnarok, the guy who created God of War, said that the game looked like DLC. This wasn't an easy plane to navigate through. Y'all sound stupid when y'all say stupid stuff like that. And amidst all those difficulties, PlayStation was number one through the supply constraint. They were still number one. They never once lost their lead. They led from the beginning of the generation up till now. Never lost their lead. That's something that Sean Layden and Couture's predecessor can say. Because at launch of the Xbox One generation, it kept fluctuating until one point PlayStation was in the lead and it kept leading. That never happened. PlayStation led from the very beginning. Xbox had a cheaper console, Game Pass was getting all this attention. Jim Ryan had to lead through all that. So again, let's look at Jim Ryan's accomplishments, which were no small feat, regardless of him having God of War and Horizon in his back pocket. One of the most successful PlayStation launches in history despite chip shortages. Big acquisitions to help bolster their ecosystem, which include Insomniac. We got to remember, Insomniac was purchased by Jim. Jim purchased Insomniac. And there's even rumors right now that Spider-Man 2 might be better than Spider-Man 1. Big purchases like Insomniac, Bungie, Haven, House Marquee, Bluepoint, and more reinvigorated PlayStation Plus, that again happened under Jim's watch, to become an industry competitor in cloud and subscription services. We saw the court documents. PlayStation Plus became a competitor in cloud because of Jim. It became a competitor in the subscription market over the last year or two, seeing substantial growth, while its competitor Game Pass is stymied because of Jim. You saw the emails from Matt Booty and them. They're talking about the only competitor we have in the subscription market is PlayStation Plus because of Jim. And record highs in PlayStation revenue. Regardless of the reason, Jim is leaving. He is leaving on a very high note. And that's it for that section. Let me go to the chat. Y'all been patiently waiting. It says Xbox or masters and coming up with dumb ass narratives. I will say, as an Xbox, look, I was deep in my Xbox zealotry. I hated PlayStation. I hated them. And to be honest, and for those that are looking for context, I hated PlayStation not because PlayStation wasn't winning. I didn't like the games on no, not the game, because they had the best they had all the best multiplats. I didn't like the console. I didn't like what I felt was the latency in the controller. I didn't like how the controller felt. I just didn't like how their exclusive or the presentation of the games, or their contribution to the innovation of gaming was all about cinematics. I didn't like that. I wanted it to be around great gameplay, which I felt like they didn't focus on themselves when it came to their games. Great gameplay and tech. I didn't feel like they really pushed tech enough. where I felt like Microsoft was doing that. My favorite console by the end of the 6th generation ended up being the OG Xbox, because I felt like they were doing that. When the 360 came, I just liked the 360 because it just blew it. The 360 was transformative. It changed gaming. Not just from what it offered personally, but the type of games that they helped put the spotlight on. It changed gaming and flipped gaming on its head. PlayStation doesn't have Naughty Dog. You don't get it. Look, just like I'm telling my Xbox gamers, you got to give Jim Ryan his due. You got to actually thank Jim Ryan for these 10-year deals and the diversity of places where you're seeing the Xbox lineup. I'm going to tell my ponies, you got to thank Xbox for Uncharted. You got to thank Xbox for Spider-Man. You got to thank Xbox for the games that you love, because that Western developed moniker and the photorealism that presented doesn't become a staple of PlayStation if Xbox doesn't put Western developed games on the forefront. Like Xbox put Western developed games so much on the forefront and forced Sony's hand to really focus on that they abandoned the Japanese developers. The Japanese developers went to mobile games. Sean Layton will tell you, told you in interviews that when the PlayStation 4 came out, they had to keep their focus on Western developed games. They did that through pushing indies and making sure that they had the best multiplats. And then when their games started rolling out, there was Horizon Zero Dawn and Uncharted. Then they went to the Japanese developers and said, now y'all can come back. And then you started seeing Demon Souls and all these, you know what I'm saying? All these other Japanese, Nakama or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I can't remember the name of that one game. Then you start seeing the Japanese development just bolster the lineup even more. But that was triggered by Xbox. The OG Xbox putting such a spotlight on Western developed games that Phil Harrison and company and Yoshida out there, they signed Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog was doing other type of games, games that traditionally, weren't that fed the international audience, and including Asia and in Asia. And then they realized, you know what, y'all got to mature. Now our studios got to become more mature, like how these Xbox games are becoming more mature. And the capabilities, the scope, the photorealism. Now we got to do that. We got to start doing that over here. So the Xbox machine was serious. So that's why I love the Xbox machine. It was serious in it revolutionizing gaming. I love innovative type stuff. I love it. I don't love innovative talk. I love innovative results. And this is why a lot of people say, well, if you like innovation, how come you don't? Because Xbox talks the talk, but don't walk the walk. Their things always land and fall short under this new regime. So I'm not a fan of it. But I love innovative results. Ron Slusher says, breaking news, Microsoft is buying Jim Ryan for $3.2 million. You're right. He would do a lot better than at Xbox than Phil would. That's for sure. Look at the results are there. He says they burn out. Yeah, they do. SIE people burn out. Phil isn't under any pressure, even though he's mediocre. But yeah, and that's a problem. But the evangelist marketing gives the illusion that this guy's winning awards. For what? What is he winning awards for? I mean, let's just say, if you say for the things that he says he wants to do, people get excited. They don't land well. They don't happen. You said Jim lying. Jimbo let the games do the talking, for better or for worse. Absolutely. I said the same thing about them having one of the most stressful jobs. He says, little fun fact today, only 7 people play Redfall on stream. Yeah, I saw that earlier. Day and date on PC is the moment I will sell my PlayStation 5 and never own another console from November again. I'm not that concerned with day and date on PlayStation. I mean, on PC. I would be concerned with it if it messes with the quality of the game. I'm thinking they can even push back to 6 months. As long as resources aren't taken away from the console, then, aren't taken away to where it affects the console launch, where it ends up watering down both. He says, nope, 6 months would be too close to I'd say wait. To where I'd say wait. So if you're willing to wait 6 months for a PlayStation exclusive, I don't doubt there's a smidgen of the market that would be willing to do that. But the most enthusiastic fans that bolster the brand, they're not waiting 6 months. Now 3 months, and they're not even waiting 3 months, but I think 3 months is definitely too close. But 6 months, they're not waiting 6 months. You're willing to wait 6 months because you have the hardware that would make it kick ass. You're less than 1% of the gaming populace out there. But I'm not mad at a year. I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying there's people that are mad at a year, and I don't understand it. I mean, I would have loved to play God of War on my PC. You know what I mean? God of War Ragnarok. But whatever. You said 2 years minimum. I think that's too long. As the internet infrastructure grows, so will games of service. He says, my man Roast been renting for 2 hours straight today. Holy ish. Love for Jim Ryan is unlimited. No, this is my thing, Cold Blood. I don't like the arrogance that he's shown. My big thing with Jim Ryan that I'm upset with is his lack of fanfare. Like, that's one thing the man is not about. It's like it's straight. Jim Ryan is straight X's and O's. But here's what we're not going to do. This is why I had to do today's show. Here's what we're not going to do. We are not going to say that Jim Ryan is a failure despite all the accomplishments, and say Phil Spencer is accomplished despite all his failures. We're not going to live in that loopy, bizarre world. We're not going to do that. Like, Jim Ryan is not on my top list of favorite execs, gaming execs. He's not there. But like, I like Sean Layton better than Jim Ryan. I do. Because Sean Layton was more geared towards fanfare. And I just think Sean Layton just had a better connection to the gamer. But ain't no denying. But Jim Ryan's X's and O's, he's just the X's and O's guy. Like, Jim Ryan he reminds me. Well, I don't think you watch American football, Cold Blood. If you watch him, look up Bill Belichick. Look up Bill Belichick. Look up coach of the New England Patriots. I want you to look up the coach of the New England Patriots, Bill Belichick, and look up snippets of Bill Belichick during press conferences. He is the most miserable man, I think, on this side of the galaxy. But his time with Tom Brady was considered the most genius coaching in football. He got the job done. Was he exciting to talk to? No, but he got the job done. So what we're not going to do, but then you go look at another, I can't think of any other. You go look at other coach whose winning record is under 500, but because he's a nice guy and you know what I'm saying, he's in all the commercials because he's a good looking guy or whatever. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to sit here and applaud and give awards to Phil Spencer every day for failing and not making benchmarks and promising things that don't come to fruition. We're not going to do that, but look at the consummate X and O's businessman and say he's a failure. We're not going to do that. That's so ignorant. So it's System Wars. The GameSpot mods killed that site. Yeah, they did. They were harsh, man. They were harsh, and I didn't care. Okay, I'm going to go to sleep. Got to work tomorrow. All right, Cold Blood, appreciate it. He said that's post up, but he doesn't play games. All right. I lied. We're at 3 hours and 20 minutes. There is no way that I can talk about Starfield in first party. So we're going to save that for another time. But I just had to talk about Jim Ryan. I'll save the Starfield stuff because I'm hungry. I ain't ate all day, and I gotta get out of here. With that said, I appreciate all of y'all. Thank y'all so much. Until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day. Peace.